Current Affairs for Beginners. Let's start our today's session. First, let us see answers for the questions from our yesterday's video. Article 326 of the Indian Constitution is associated with bar to interference by courts in certain disputes, universal adult suffrage, discretionary power of President, original jurisdiction of Supreme Court. The answer is this Article 326 deals with universal adult suffrage. According to this article, for the elections to Lok Sabha as well as legislative assemblies, a person in order to vote should have an age of 18 years. The next question is, which among the following pollutants are measured by air quality index? Carbon monoxide, suspended particulate matter, fine particulate matter, sulfur dioxide, lead. Yesterday we have seen about this air quality index, which provides us the data about the level of pollutants in the air, and it calculates for 8 pollutants. They are nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxide, particulate matter of size 2.5, which is also known as suspended particulate matter, and particulate matter of size 10, which is also known as fine particulate matter, ozone, carbon monoxide, ammonia and lead. So from this we can look into our options now. Carbon monoxide, suspended particulate matter, fine particulate matter. Suspended means PM 2.5, fine means PM 10. Sulfur dioxide and lead. As all the 5 are measured by air quality index, the answer here is D. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now let's start our today's session, and these are all the topics that we are going to cover in our today's video. And the link for the notes of this video is already available in the description below. You can download the notes from there. Our first article is, traders and politicians have slammed the government for the suspension of cross-LOC trade. This article is an extension for our yesterday's article, where the Home Ministry has suspended this cross-line of control trade due to some trafficking is happening across, by showing this trafficking across the border. Here this article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of internal security, and from the prelims point of view we have already seen about this line of control yesterday, but let us also see it again today, and along with it let us see another topic known as international border. What is this international border? First of all, this international border is the India-Pakistan border, which is the border between the countries of India and Pakistan. Actually, this is this international border, the border that separates this India and Pakistan. This is recognized by the world, and this international border is based on artificial Radcliffe line that was published on 17th August of 1947 as a boundary demarcation line between India and Pakistan based on the partition of India. But from then, this international border is always in conflict between India and Pakistan. During the partition of India and Pakistan, Maharaja Hari Singh, who is the king of the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir, he has agreed to sign instrument of accession as per the suggestion of the then Governor General Mountbatten. India has claimed that the whole territory of the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir had become Indian territory due to this instrument of accession. But Pakistan had believed that it will be part of its territory due to its majority population was Muslim. Then from that time, the territory of Jammu and Kashmir was in constant dispute between India and Pakistan. And this state has become a war ground, which led to a ceasefire line between these two countries. A ceasefire line was designated with each country controlling on either side of the Kashmir. So here today the state is divided into India controlled Kashmir and Pakistan controlled Kashmir, which is also known as Gilgit Baltistan and Azad Jammu and Kashmir. And according to the Shimla agreement, this ceasefire line is designated as line of control. So this line of control is the military borderline, military control line, which is considered as a de facto border. But the official border between India and Pakistan is this international border. This line of control is only a de facto borderline. And the length of this line of control is 740 kilometers, which is around 460 miles. Whereas this international border is around 2900 kilometers, which is around 1800 miles. The next article is Supreme Court to hear petition to end write-offs. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of economy. So from the prelims point of view, now we are going to see what is this write-offs. In the banking and finance, the term write-off is just an accounting term. This is an accounting term, which means the bank or the lender will not count the money the borrower should repay to it. Let me repeat it. The term write-off means the bank or the lender will not count the money the borrower has to repay to it. Here, the financial statement, that means the balance sheet of the bank, will indicate that the write-off loans will be compensated through some other way. This is the need to clear off the balance sheet of the bank. Cleaning of the balance sheet means the bad assets will be replaced. We know what is meant by a bad loan or a non-performing asset. A loan which is not repaid in its as a principal amount or the interest for 90 days, for more than 90 days, then that loan will be considered as a non-performing asset. So, which is not good for a bank. It will indicate a negative sign on the bank's financial health. So, to clean off its balance sheet, the banks will use this write-off term. Is it that way that the borrower need not pay? No, there is no exemption for the borrower from payment. The debt of the borrower will remain and recovery measures from the borrower will continue. But what will happen here is, on the balance sheet of the bank, this will not be there. These loans will be there in the bank's branch books, but it will not be shown. Here in India, the loan write-off is done within the framework of Income Tax Act of 1961. The next article is Either Way, the News is Bad. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of international relations. Here this entire article is about the economy of Pakistan. And as it is an editorial article, the analysis of this article will be done by Dr. Rambabu sir in the deep video. Now, let us see about this institution called IMF. In our 17th April video, we have already seen about this IMF. So, let me brief it again. This IMF was originated from a conference known as Bretton Woods Conference. Now, this conference that took place in 1944 has resulted in the creation of 4 important organizations. They are IMF, World Bank, GATT, which is known as General Agreement on Trade and Tariff, which later became WTO in 1995. And the other thing is fixed exchange rate system, but this system was discarded in 1970s itself. So now let us see about our International Monetary Fund. And this is headquartered in Washington, and the official languages used in this IMF are Chinese, English, French, Russian, Spanish and Arabic. And there are 189 member countries in this International Monetary Fund. The primary purpose for which this IMF is established is to ensure stability of international monetary system. To stabilize the international monetary system, this IMF was launched. So it has an objective to achieve this stabilization of international monetary system. Let us see what are those objectives. It is to foster global monetary cooperation. There has to be monetary cooperation among the countries, and it should secure financial stability and facilitate international trade and promote high employment and sustainable economic growth and reduce poverty across the world. These are the objectives of IMF to reach this or to attain this stabilization of international monetary system. So as we are saying that the IMF's fundamental mission is to ensure stability of international monetary system, how it will do? It will do in three ways. First thing is like surveillance. It will keep track of the global economy and also the economies of its 189 member countries. And lending. The next factor is lending. It will lend to the countries who are having these monetary difficulties, like who are having this balance of payment difficulties. To that country this IMF will lend. And capacity development. IMF will also provide practical help to the members through capacity development. And we are saying that here the entire thing is to stabilize the monetary system and to help the countries who are having balance of payment crisis by lending to them. Then where are the resources? From where this IMF will get those resources? What will happen here is all the member countries based on their economy size will be provided with a quota. So based on the quota that is allotted to each country will have to provide some money. This is known as the IMF resource. Here based on this quota that is assigned, each member country will provide these financial resources in their official currencies or in US dollars and in the form of gold. So from this pool of money, a country whichever is facing this balance of payment crisis, it can borrow the money from here. The next article is humanize the law. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of environment and also under the GS paper 2 under the topic of polity. On February 13th, the Supreme Court has ruled that over 1.12 million households from 17 states who were claiming for forest rights and whose claims were rejected under the Forest Rights Act, they should be evicted by the state governments before July 27. This is the ruling of Supreme Court. So from the prelims point of view, from this article, now we are going to see the details of this Forest Rights Act. What is this Forest Rights Act of 2006? This is also known as Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Recognition of Forest Rights Act of 2006 or Forest Rights Act of 2006. Now first let us see the evolution of this Forest Rights Act. During the colonial times, what the British did is they diverted the forest wealth of the nation to meet their economic needs. So during that period, we had a law. We had a procedure for settlement of rights under Indian Forest Act of 1927. But these provisions were not followed. So what happened? The tribal and the forest dwelling communities who lived in the forests, they lived in tenurial insecurity, a situation which continued even after independence because they were marginalized. So the relationship between forests and the forest dwelling communities found recognition in our National Forest Policy of 1988. This policy has called for the need to associate these tribal people who were marginalized in the protection, regeneration, and by developing the forests. How to associate them? They needs to be associated with the development of forest. Then this act known as Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Act of 2006 was enacted to protect the marginalized socio-economic class of citizens and balance the right to environment with their right to life and livelihood. This act deals with the rights of these scheduled tribes and other forest dwelling communities who are occupying and are depending on the forest land for over generations and who are depending on those resources from generations. So what this act do is, it will grant legal recognition to the rights of these traditional forest dwelling communities by correcting the injustice that was caused by our existing forest laws like Indian Forest Act of 1927. So we are saying that this act will recognize the rights of the forest dwelling communities. What rights this will recognize? It will recognize community rights or rights over the proper resources of the communities along with individual rights and right of ownership to collect, use and dispose of minor forest to produce, and right of settlement and right to protect, regenerate or conserve or manage any forest resources which the communities were traditionally protecting and conserving for sustainable use. And this act also provides a right of rehabilitation if there is any illegal eviction or displacement from the forest land. And it grants a right to intellectual property and traditional knowledge that is related to biodiversity and cultural diversity. And this act also provides for diverting the forest land for public utility facilities that were managed by the government like schools, dispensaries, fair price shops, electricity, telecommunication lines, water tanks, all this. So, is it like everybody who are residing in the forest will get these rights? No, there is an eligibility criteria. The rights will be provided only to those who are primarily residing in the forest and depending on the forest and forest land for their livelihood from generations. The person who is claiming for the rights must be a member of scheduled tribes that is scheduled in that area, or he must have been residing in that area for 75 years. Then the thing that is important for us here is what is the procedure for recognizing those rights. Here the Gram Sabha or village assembly will play the major role. It will initially pass a resolution. It will recommend whose rights to which resources should be recognized, and this resolution will be screened and approved at the level of subdivision or taluka and later at the district level. And this screening committee consists of 3 government officials: forest, revenue and tribal welfare departments, and also it consists of 3 elected members of the local body at that level. By hearing the appeals, this screening committee will grant recognition of rights to the people who are claiming for those rights. The next article is a dialogue with our fragile past. This article comes under GS paper 1 under the topic of culture, because here we are going to see about a cathedral known as Notre-dam Cathedral based in Paris of France. This is in France. Recently this cathedral has got destructed due to fire. The foundation stone for this was laid in 1163 by Pope Alexander III during the reign of King Louis VII. Why this is important for us here is because this is one of the finest examples of French Gothic architecture, cathedral architecture. So, and also it was declared as UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1991. This is why it is very important. It is declared as a World Heritage by UNESCO. The next article is BBB tax 75 officers for leadership roles in public sector banks. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of economy. Here, from this article, now we are going to see about what is this BBB. It is Banks Board Bureau. Banks Board Bureau is originated based on the recommendations of a committee that was formed in 2014. That committee is the Committee to Review Governance of Boards of Banks in India. Committee to Review the Governance of Boards of Banks in India. And this committee has recommended to set up this Banks Board Bureau, followed by which the government has announced the constitution of this Banks Board Bureau in 2016. So from 2016, this has become an autonomous body. Then what is the major function of this Banks Board Bureau? It is a sole recommendatory body. It is a recommendatory body. Then what does it recommend? This authority will give recommendations for appointment of full-time directors as well as non-executive chairman of these public sector banks. This is what it has done even here. It has recommended 75 officers for the leadership roles in the public sector banks, and it will give advice to these public sector banks in developing the strategies for raising funds through innovative financial methods in order to deal with the issues of stressed assets. We have already seen what is meant by this stressed assets before. And it will guide the banks on mergers and consolidations, and it will also guide the banks in governance issues to address these bad loans problems. Then what is this Banks Board Bureau composed of? It comprises of 3 ex officio members from government and 3 expert members, of which 2 are from private sector along with the chairman. And the first Banks Board Bureau was set up in February 2016 under the chairmanship of former Comptroller and Auditor General of India Vinod Rai for 2-year term, and that ended in March of 2018. Our next article is Cases of Measles Show Alarming Rise, warns the World Health Organization. This entire article is about the World Health Organization's preliminary global data on measles. Here there is a 300% rise in measles cases worldwide during the first 3 months of 2019 compared to the same period in 2018. And the highest number of measles cases were reported from countries where there is high vaccination coverage like Israel, Thailand, Tunisia and also India. So now from the prelims point of view, let us see about measles. What is this measles? Measles is a highly contagious viral disease that will spread by contact with an infected person through cough or sneezing. What are the reasons for this disease to occur? It is because of lack of vitamin A. Vitamin A and poor immunity are the risk factors for these measles. As I said, it is a highly contagious viral disease. It is caused by the virus known as paramyxovirus, which affects mostly children, and it is transmitted through droplets from the nose, mouth or throat of infected persons. And the virus will infect the respiratory system, making it highly contagious. And this virus cannot survive for too long outside the body. especially in malnourished children and people with low immunity, this measles can cause serious complications like blindness, encephalitis, severe diarrhea, ear infection, and pneumonia. Dear students, though I didn't write it clearly here, I have provided you with a detailed notes. Everything is there in the notes in a detailed format. You can check it there. And I forgot to say here that this article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of issues related to health. Now let's see our today's prelims questions. The first question is, World Press Freedom Index is published by which among the following? Transparency International, United Nations Human Rights Council, Reporters Without Borders, Amnesty International. The next thing is, consider the following pairs. Here I have given you some communities that were mentioned in the news and in the affairs of. That means to which country these communities belong to. Rohingya, Myanmar, Uyghurs, China, Madheshi, Nepal. Try to answer these questions and post your answers in the comment box, and in our next video we'll see the answers for these questions. Thank you.